because at conference, we talked about what we do either local, what we can do locally to help increase participation in Data Plus Women. What actions are we taking to be inclusive? And really being action focused. And we really wanted that to extend beyond the Tableau conference. It's great to be able to convene 1,700 people in a room to talk about it, but conference is one time a year and not everybody gets to go. So this is part of the action we're taking, which is to bring this conversation outside of conference. We have some amazing panelists lined up today. We have our moderator and my co-host of the Data Plus Women pre-conference event, Serena Roberts. We have Maria Brock, Lindsay Poulter, Erin Simpler, Bonnie McLean, and Kendra McCrae. So I will go ahead and unmute you all, and Serena, I will turn it over to you.
Awesome, thanks, Emily. I was going to share my video because I have nothing to present, and so either we can stare at the agenda for 45 minutes, or I can start my video.
You can share your screen. You can start your video, that's fine. I think it would be great if all panelists actually, if they're able to be on video, so that way we can really see each other in a conversation.
It says you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it. But all good. We'll move forward with or without video. So as Emily said, I am Serena Roberts. This is the Data Plus Women session of the Tableau Fringe Festival. I'm here in Minneapolis. You can't see me, but I had like a puffy vest on and a flannel shirt and a nice cup of hot tea because it's cold here right now. I lead the Minneapolis chapter of She Talks Data, as well as I co-founded a nonprofit this summer called the Sisterhood of Technology Professionals. So this subject is really important to me, and I spend a significant amount of my time and energy on it, and I love talking about it. And it is my absolute privilege to facilitate this really important discussion with the amazing women that we have on the panel today. But before we jump into the meat and potatoes of this, I just want to quickly talk about why groups like this exist. I'll try starting my video. There. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
So why do groups like this exist? Number one is it's to create, to foster a sense of community, right? Because we need to know that we're not alone, we are stronger together, that kind of thing. The second is to raise awareness around the fact that women who work in this field have a different experience, and we need to be able to talk about that with each other and with other people in a safe space. And lastly, and probably most importantly, is to drive change and to talk about how we can take action to make progress and make this. What this group and groups like this are not, they are not meant to be places to come and complain and, you know, glorify victimization and blame all of our problems on other people. And every time I have one of these conversations, I feel like that's a really important bit of context to add, because that's absolutely not what we're about. So, all right, ladies, thank you so much for agreeing to be on this panel. I do want to take a couple minutes and just have each of you give us a quick introduction, who you are, maybe where you are physically, so we can just get a sense of how geographically we are spread out. Let's start with Erin.
Hi, my name is Erin Simpler-Kellett. I'm in the Washington, D.C. area. Little bit about me. I've been a co-organizer of the DC Data Plus Women chapter, along with Emily and Brittany and Julie for the last couple of years. Yeah, hey everybody. A little bit about my background. So I studied economics in school and have transitioned to an IT role. So kind of we come from a non-technical background into more of a technical background. And now I'm in the IT department of a federal agency, and I help people analyze and communicate their data. So I train people on Tableau use and provide technical support, and also am a technical lead for our Business Intelligence Center of Excellence. So that's me.
Awesome. Thanks, Erin.
Yeah.
Let's do Lindsay next.
All right, my name is Lindsay Poulter. I'm in New York City. I work at Wells Fargo as an analytics consultant. I've been using Tableau for about 5 years. I started using it when I was in college as an intern, and then ever since then I've just been using it pretty much every single day. And I'm a Tableau public ambassador and just did IronVids, so excited to be here.
Congrats, that was an awesome job. Anyway, our resident Tableau famous person here. Thank you. Let's go, let's have Bonnie go next.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Perfect. I always tell people that I'm a recovering medical writer because I used to just write about medicine, health economics, and health policy. But I noticed over the years, as the climate changed, I was basically told, write this, not that. And when I would question about the types of data that needed to be included, I was told, well, that's too technical. We'll leave that to the analysts. You do this, we'll do that. And that's when I transitioned to a career in data. And I got a executive online degree in applied analytics at Columbia School of Engineering. And I never looked back, and I just could never ignore the data again. I've been using Tableau for a long time. I've been to 6 conferences, not so much the last few years. And I run a applied analytics consultancy, which, unlike most people, it's kind of the upstream to Tableau part, where we create the data question and we formulate the question. We look to see what data might be available to answer the question, and then maybe we have to reformulate the question. And I make a lot of those decisions and do a lot of exploratory analytics. And I am in North Carolina.
Awesome. That's super impressive, Bonnie. Thank you. How about Maria?
Hello, I am Maria, and I'm from the Washington, D.C. area as well. Hi, Erin. And I am a senior at George Mason University right now, studying economics and data analytics. But I'll be focusing more on data analytics when I graduate and be working as a Tableau developer. So I'm really excited to be here. I'm also a student, I'm a Tableau student ambassador. So I'm working with students in my university and in the area, learn Tableau and use it. So yeah, I'm really excited.
Thanks. Welcome, Maria. Glad to have you. And last but not least, we have Kendra.
Hi, I'm Kendra McRae, and I am based out of Columbus, Georgia, which is about an hour south of Atlanta. I am the founder and principal consultant of Lamotis, which is an analytics and digital strategy consulting firm here. And then I've been using Tableau since 2014. And I kind of look at my analytics experience as like I came out of the school of hard knocks. So a lot of mistakes, a lot of fails up, if that makes any sense. And, and prior to, doing my consulting firm, I was the executive director of analytics and everything solutions.
Awesome. That's super impressive, Kendra. Well, as you can see, we have an amazing group of diverse women here who I am just super excited to hear you guys' perspectives on. So I've got some predefined questions for you. Feel free to not answer them if you feel like if they make you uncomfortable or you just don't have anything to add. So don't feel like you're required to answer any of these questions. But I am very excited to hear what you have to say. So the first question, and just kind of, jump in if you've got something burning to say. I'll make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak if they want to, but not belabor each question. So first question, what career barriers or impediments have you encountered that you believe are unique to women?
I'm happy to go. Um,
Go ahead, Bonnie.
I've never shared this in its complexity and its full story. So this is a big reveal for me. And this is like over 20 years ago. But I was a chiropractor in Oxnard, California, and I opened up my office to treat migrant farm workers. I thought, well, gosh, they bend over all day. They probably need some chiropractic. And I was diagnosing like pulmonary fibrosis and advanced asthma. And so I pivoted to go to medical school. And I was accepted into this program to get underrepresented women that are making a difference in their communities into medical school. So, fast forward to the interview at the end of the program, I wasn't scheduled for an interview. And I was thinking, like, what's going on? And I asked the guy, and first off, they said, well, this is for minorities and we don't think you're Black enough. Like, no joke, this was said to me. And I was so offended, I went to the dean. And he looked at me, and I don't know how he knew I was pregnant because I hadn't told him. He probably saw my services in the clinic or something, because basically I looked at my husband in my underwear and I was pregnant, and then I was talking to the dean. So I don't know how he knew anything. He says to me, I don't know why you want an interview anyway. And he goes like this is the dean of the medical school. He goes like this: one complication with your pregnancy and you're out of the game anyway. And I remember being horrified and said, well, I'm going to go talk to the dean of the entire school. He's going to be horrified too. And when I go to get on his calendar, they tell me that he's actually playing golf with the guy that said the first thing to me about being pregnant and not being really competitive as a pregnant woman to continue on in medical school. Hopefully that's all changed now. But I mean, it was very, very sobering, that you're standing in a room and people are saying horrific things in front of you.
Wow. That's deep. Thanks for sharing that, Bonnie. I'm so sorry that happened to you. I hope things are better as well. Chances are there's probably still instances of that happening. Progress, right? Thank you so much for sharing that. Anybody else? That Bonnie, your answer actually kind of touched on our next question too, which is asking people to share about any personal experiences that they've had with sexism, benevolent or active or otherwise. So maybe since you've kind of opened that box, that can of worms, we'll kind of combine these two questions together. So if you have any hurdles that you have encountered in your career that you think are unique to women, share. Otherwise, some sort of experience with discrimination as a woman. Anybody else?
Yeah, so I'll touch on the second question, which is the experiences with sexism, benevolent or otherwise. So my previous company at Ramsey Solutions, it actually adheres to what's known as the Graham rule. And I'm not sure if a lot of people know that. That's, I think, Billy Graham's rule, where he won't meet with women alone, nor will he be in elevators or anything else, basically because they have this perception of, that something bad could happen if men and women are left alone. And so I felt like, in their eyes, they believed that it was a way to protect both men and women from, like, let's say, sexual harassment or whatever. But in my perspective, it undermined career building relationships that I could have, honed with some male senior, executives. Because, while my male colleagues were able to go to one-on-one lunches and dinners and golf outings and a whole bunch of stuff, my relationship with those, the one-on-one relationship was really confined to the context at work within a formal meeting. And so just, that's just one of those, I guess it's benevolent sexism, but at the end of the day, it's a distinction without a difference. Because I'm still unable to fully participate in building relationships at work.
Yeah, that's I feel like that's a gray zone, right? Because it's almost like active sexism in the guise of benevolent sexism. So yeah, I've heard of stories like that, and every time it's just like, what the heck? That does not make any sense. Thanks for sharing that, Kendra. Anybody else have anything they would like to share on those subjects?
Yeah, and I guess I'll say when I was thinking about these questions, I felt I was pretty lucky that I couldn't think of a specific example of where I felt like sexism or something has like directly impacted me. And so then I was trying to think, well, like, has it just not impacted me? Or am I just so used to being surrounded by males all the time in my classes and in meetings and everything that I just kind of normalized things? I think the biggest thing for me is just in terms of like tone and like raising your voice and finding out in situations in meetings, like when I should like raise my voice or like make sure that my voice is heard, because I'm in a lot of meetings where people who are in higher positions than I will like raise their voices and try to be heard that way, and that's not something that I'm necessarily comfortable with. And so there's maybe a little hint of aggression or something, people trying to get their points made across, but then whenever I've also seen female colleagues who in situations will try to go up and raise their voices and go against them, and they're then seen as like hard to work with, or something that like no one ever says about the men when they raise their voices, that when the women raise their voice, it's automatically like something really bad about them. And so it's just then when I'm in meetings or thinking, I'm like, well, what do I be silent or do I make my voice heard, when even though it's not something I'm comfortable with? That's probably the biggest thing that I wrestle with.
Yep, absolutely. I think women in general have to spend just a little bit more time thinking about how they're dressed, the tone of their voice. Is this coming across too aggressive? There's this very sort of fine line between being these things that are historically feminine and being taken seriously as a professional, as a skilled technologist. So it's I see people walking that tightrope very, very finely, and I would like that path to be wider for us in the future. So thanks for sharing that.
I can add one more thing about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you can go.
Well, this is really fast. Something that I hadn't thought about that time when I was going to medical school in so long, that reminded me I was taking a class, an advanced genetics class, and I just had one of my children. And so I'm taking the exam, and all of a sudden, I mean, it's just us 6 women, right? So, but my milk came in, and I'm taking this very complicated course. I know it was my first child. I couldn't concentrate. I panicked. I went up to the professor. I mean, he could clearly see that there was something happening of a physiologic nature. And I asked him if I could just like come back, let me take the exam. And he would not let me take the exam. He said either I finish it, sit for it, or I get a 0, or he was just going to take it from me. And I ended up having to drop the class. And when the head in Chapel Hill found out about it, the head genetics guy, he was infuriated and wanted to press charges against the man. But I was just like, I think it was a lot for him to take in, a hormonal woman, with that going on. But that just reminded me about that from the story I was telling earlier. Yeah,
that's real life problems, right? And no one ever says, here's how you deal with a situation like that. So thanks for sharing that, Bonnie. Erin?
Wow. Yeah, I'll just say, Bonnie, that's pretty wild. Essentially, in my experience, it's been a lot more subtle, kind of more similar to what Lindsay said. But I feel like for me, one of the barriers has been that I feel like I need to work harder to be taken seriously and earn the trust of people when it comes to technical issues. So in the past, I was really quiet at work. I didn't know, I kind of lacked confidence in my opinion. And I would hear these people and they would be very confidently talking about these technical issues. And at first I didn't quite understand. So I was like, oh, they must really know what they're talking about. And then as I started to understand more, particularly around, tablet server and that kind of stuff, I was like, wait a second, they don't know what they're talking about. That doesn't make any sense. But I still had to work a lot harder when I did start talking to earn the trust of the people around me when it came to technical issues. And just as one example, and this was completely benevolent sexism, but I was talking with a couple engineers about an issue, and I'm not an engineer. I didn't fully understand this issue, I will say, but I was asking questions about what they were saying that was going on, and they would say, I would ask a question, and then they would kind of one of the guys would just kind of kind of explain the whole situation again in very simplistic terms, and then but not answer the question. And then the other guy realized and said the same question word for word, and the response was, "Oh yeah, I guess that's a good point." And so I don't even know, and like I'm friends with both of these guys. Like it wasn't, I don't think it was on purpose or anything, but just when I was saying it, even though it's word for word the same as this other guy who's an engineer, I was not taken seriously. And so that kind of thing, I think earlier on in my career, I didn't, particularly when I transitioned it more into technology, I didn't really expect that. So it's hard to know. It's hard to know what causes you not to be taken seriously. Is it gender? Is it what I'm saying? Is it my tone of voice? So it kind of, for me, I think that impacted my confidence, because I didn't know what was causing it. I figured, oh, I guess I can't be taken seriously with this type of topic. So that's my that's what I wanted to share.
Yeah, what Erin's talking about has happened to me at least several times, and I agree with what she was saying, which is sometimes you do have to be twice as good to be seen as equal, and especially if you add any more kind of things onto your identity, it's then it really kind of hits the mark. Like I've been told, oh, this is surprisingly technical. Why are you surprised? Like, I mean, that's really the question, because I was like, everything that I've demonstrated up to this point is an absolute advantage of knowledge over everybody in this room. But you're surprised at me. And the thing is, you don't want to, but like in your head, that's the way, and like, you have an attitude about it, because you're like, I've not given you a reason to undermine or to challenge my, kind of my technical abilities, right? So why is it that you come out the gate doing that to me, but you don't do that to anybody else in the room, even some of my, lesser skilled male colleagues, where I'm actually the one teaching them, right? So like, I get what Erin's saying, because I mean, when I say it happens, like more often than it should, it's normal. And I'm not sure if anybody else has been in that and at a table where someone's gone, oh, yeah, that's surprisingly technical, or maybe we should reserve the technical things for the technical people.
Yep, the struggle is real on that one, Kendra. I think that's probably one of the common things. And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't acknowledge the fact that because you are not just a woman, but a woman of color, that's a double whammy. Like you've got some extra work to do, even beyond on us white girls. So yeah, struggle is real, guys.
What I always say though is like, this is why I identify as also being like unemployable. Like I had to be a consultant, because I just speak my mind and I call it out. I mean, I was at a meeting with clients with a couple pharmaceutical companies and an agency, and I was challenging him on some things, and his joke afterwards was like, I don't know why you were heckling me. I'm like, why am I heckling you if I'm just pointing out inconsistencies in your logic and that we're missing data to answer that actual question? And so, I requested data to be sent to me, and I get a copy of the report, and 30 pages in the middle that actually answer the question were redacted out of the report. And who knows why? Who knows why? I mean, I think that's why women, our uniqueness, I actually believe we ask different questions. I think there's certain things that we want brought to the table that might be overlooked. And I think that's a secret power of ours.
Absolutely. It's the whole point of diversity, right?
Well, and then also the data actually supports it. Companies that are led by women have higher stock prices and performance. So I'm not sure if there's a magic sauce in, in being a woman, but clearly we're doing something different.
Yep. I think that's the key. It's different. Thank you all for sharing those really personal and just real, authentic stories. I have kind of a quick one. that I like to share because I think it comes at this from an angle that not all of us are thinking about all the time. When my career started in about 2005, I joined a really small boutique analytics consulting firm, and there were not a lot of women there. And back then I was younger and couldn't benefit from the hindsight that I have now. And I admittedly, I'm in a room, and normally I'm the only woman at the table. And there was an instance that I'm thinking of in particular, but others that follow the same vein, where there was another gal in the room. And looking back on that now, I can see that instead of making room for that other woman at the table, I was kind of being defensive and thinking to myself, like, I'm here at this table because I deserve to be here, because I am better than you, because I am the shit, and I can hang with these boys, and I can handle all their sexist remarks and jokes about women and all that stuff. I can handle it because I'm cool. And that was dumb. That was super dumb. I look back at that now, and it's essentially the rule of scarcity, right? Like if we believe that there is only one or two spots for women at the table, then we are competing with each other and just furthering that construct. So thankfully, it didn't take me long to figure out that I was being an a-hole. And that I needed to roll out a welcome mat. I needed to have a red carpet for these other women to come and join me, because we were stronger together, and we could make more of an impact together. That's my story. Okay, so next question. How often, and we probably have a variety of single women, mothers. It seems like we've got a good spectrum here. So when I ask this question, this isn't just about choosing between your work and being a wife and a mom. This is just choosing between your work and being all of the things that you are outside of that. So how often do you guys feel like you have to choose and make sacrifices for the good of your career at the expense of all the other things in your life that you care about and want to do?
I mean, I guess for me, at the beginning of my career, I felt like I had to leave major parts of myself in the parking lot before I walked in the building, specifically being, a Black woman, because I wanted to neutralize any opportunities for bias and misguided stereotypes. But honestly, that was a lot of effort and energy that was unnecessary. So as I kind of grew in my influence, title, and confidence, I decided to bring my whole self to work. So I really, at this point, don't choose, I don't segment myself and of who I am anymore, just because honestly, who I am, like a Black woman from Seattle, and I wasn't raised with a silver spoon in my mouth, that's the fuel that actually drives my performance. And so I always say the companies that I work for and the ones that I support in my consulting company, I always say that why do I have to behave as if who I am, like every part of me, isn't the secret sauce for what I actually produce, which is what they like. So when I walk into a room, it's walking in with all the things that make me, like, a girl that listens to metal music when I'm coding, like to all the, like goofy, awkward, all the things. And if you don't like it, that's too bad. But most times people either put up with it or actually celebrate it because it's weird. And I like it. So at this point, I feel like I choose.
More power to you, Kendra. Do you feel like your ability to do that was really set free when you went out on your own?
No. It was really when I became more of a leader in the companies that I worked with, because I knew that it was important for not only other women, but people that are awkward and people that are a little bit different to see themselves like a weirdo actually in charge of stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And so like, you know, me discounting like my experiences or the fact, you know, like leaving my entire culture outside and pretending it doesn't exist. I always say authenticity is the best leadership quality that you can ever have, right? And some people will like it and some people will hate it, but like who you are needs to be a part of the equation. And so I recognize that. So as I grew in leadership, that was what was the thing. Now, being on my own, I'm like, you know, it's, you know, like clients choose me as much as I choose them, you know, and so like, and who I am is very important to what I do, what I produce. So, I mean, that's important to any authentic working relationship.
I love it. I love everything you just said. What would you say to yourself if you could go back to that woman who was trying to leave big pieces of herself in the parking lot? What would you say?
I mean, that it'll be okay, right? Like you're not gonna, you know, you'll get the promotion, you know, being yourself. Like it, you know, some people, like you can't help and control other people's ignorance and bias and everything else. You're always gonna run into that no matter where you go. So like aiding them or making making someone else more comfortable and making yourself uncomfortable is not worth it. It's actually against self-care. And so I would say, you know, be 100% yourself, be a badass, be the bitch that, you know, I'm not saying that, but you know, but I'm saying like, if someone's like, you know, be direct, so like what Lindsay was saying, like, you know, like if you need to be direct and you need to be passionate, don't like think that, you know, like filter yourself through the lens of this is not appropriate as a woman. But be ready for the consequences, of course, and to manage all that stuff. So that's what I would say to her.
And to add to that, you know, like as a mom, I remember early in my career, you know, I felt like whatever I was going to do and whoever I was going to do it for better be pretty damn important if I'm taking time away from my growing family and things that matter to me. And when my son was, I think, 4, he heard that song, Ain't No Sunshine When She's Gone. Is that by Bill Withers, yeah. I think? And it was just playing. We're a very musical house, jazz and all that. And he comes where I'm standing, he says, Mommy, this is what it feels like when you go on an airplane. And it broke my heart to the cellular level. And I stopped in that moment.
Out of the mouths of babes.
And I was like, I'm done. I'm done making other people's dreams come true, taking the limitations that other companies put on you. Like, Bonnie, just hand in the report. It's good enough. I'm like, but it's not as good as it can be. You know, that was always my problem, you know, my stopgap. And finally, I just broke out on my own. And I just decided that from that day that was going to be my priority. And, you know, here I am, you know, 15 years later, 13 years later, I'm a member of the National Press Club. I'm a member of 500 Women Scientists. You know, I've done all of these things that were important to me, not to a boss, not to anyone else but me. And I'd like to say I've left a little, you know, better places in my wake. And so that's why I really appreciate hearing all the stories, because sometimes you feel like it's just you.
Oh, that's really inspirational, Bonnie.
And I could have something to say a little bit on this question as well, which is, even though I'm not yet, you know, if I choose to have a family, or I'm not yet a mother or working mom or anything, is that as a soon-to-be graduate, I have given a lot of thought to that, is kind of where the maternity leave laws that we have in America, which aren't as great as maybe the Nordic countries or something, whereas how much time do I have before I will have to really work very hard to find places which support maternity, which support working mothers, which give the space for moms to come back to work, the places that they hold for them, instead of, sometimes you'll see that working moms don't see the places held for them, so then they're being relegated back to entry-level positions. And that way we're really missing out on this vertical where young women are being introduced and welcomed into the workforce by those role models, by those women that have created a career, that have had a family. Just, you know, like a beautiful, you can have a family, you can have a career just as men can, and kind of establishing that. So that's always something where I've kind of been thinking about recently, which is how, am I going to have to sacrifice a portion of myself in order to get one or the other? Like, does it have to be one or the other? How can people or how can businesses work better to support women coming back if they choose to have families?
For sure. And I think it's for me, it's broader than that, because it's about parental leave in general. Because if we don't give guys the space to take up some of that slack, then we are furthering that construct that it's our job, right? And if we don't seek equality inside our households, we'll never have equality in the workforce. The other piece that I'll add to that is that I think a lot of the sacrifice, the feeling of having to choose, is driven by binary options. We are full-time employees working 50, 60 hours a week, or we're unemployed. So thankfully, there's some great research being done and other organizations blazing this trail to provide flexible working arrangements. It's still the exception and not the rule, very much so, but working remotely and working part-time and job sharing and working on an hourly basis. So if you wanted to take the summers off and be with your kids or take a trip to Europe, you can do that without having to find another job. So just wanted to add that bit.
And you have power. You have a lot of power. As and this isn't about that, like, oh, throw your bras on a fire pit. No, it's about, like, I always joke with my family, because I have all boys in my family, is that, if men were doing this, if they're like, dude, I just had a human last week. It just came out sideways, 11 pounds. Check me out. You can own the space of, and I like the term that Maria was using, of just making it happen. I mean, if you look across the country, I was in a lab with my baby in a Kelty on my back, a camping thing, because I needed to go check the slides and I needed to fill the genetic sequencer. If you just don't accept labels and constraints and silos, and you just live your life, if you're with like-minded people and you're contributing and it's mutually beneficial, you will find a way to make it all work. So I hate to think that young women would be scared off because of the old adage and the old drumbeat of, like, you got to pick one or the other. You don't. You can have it all.
Well, I think that's why it's so important to have female role models, right? Because especially,
like me.
Because as I'm entering the workforce, I started calling up and meeting with women who have been in the environment and been in the workforce, and just asking them their advice and asking that. And so to find female mentors who can really support young women, then you don't have that fear of entering the workplace. Because it's true, like, sometimes, I definitely had this preconception. What am I going to expect? Like, am I going to experience any sexism? Am I going to have to sacrifice myself if I want to become a mother? And so to see working mothers, to see women in leadership positions is so beneficial and so important for young women to enter the workforce, seeing that and seeing, oh, I can be that person.
See it, believe it, do it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anything else on this particular question that you're dying to share before we move on?
Well, really quick too, is like, what is a career to you? Is a career making a bucket of money? Is a career making a difference in the world? Is a career, we can't really lump it into one bucket, because I have to tell you, when I worked for pharma, I made a ton of money, and I thought I was all that until when I got out on my own, when I was newly as a consultant, somebody wanted to hire me because I'd done a project. They're like, we need you on our team. And I still was close enough to the world of, W-2 employment that I considered it. And he says to me, and I had a nice 6-figure salary. He says, hey, when he was asking about your salary, I told him that this would probably be a good starting point. The number that he picked was twice what I was making, and we worked together in a company. And I remember from that moment on, I was like, I was making all that money and you were making all that money? I have no, it really was sobering to think about, you know, that there is the bias, even like someone had mentioned, even if you're not aware of it. It's happening in the world around you. You could either, you know, beat your chest and be boohoo, or just go out and make the strongest path forward that you can make and bring others along. Is what I always try to do.
That's great, Bonnie. Thanks for that. Okay, I'm kind of concerned that we're not going to have time to get through all of these like questions that I really wanted to ask you ladies. So let me maybe prioritize the last couple. How do you guys feel about the future for gender equality and gender equity? And if anyone has a great way to explain the difference between the two, because maybe not everyone gets that. Feel free. Otherwise, I can cover that.
Well, you've probably seen the graphic where they have the little milk crates and everyone gets the same size milk crate, and they're trying to look over a fence, but if one person's shorter than the other, then it's, you know, equal but not equitable. So different things like that, I guess, is what you're referring to.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct?
Exactly. Just, you know, acknowledging that, you know, if we get to the point where men and women are treated equally, we still have to deal with all of the generations and the hundreds of years prior to that have impacted where they should be today. So equity is about trying to level that playing field for everyone, in addition to treating them equal right now. So how do you guys feel about the future of where this is headed? It's like good vibes? Vibes?
Kind of. So it just depends. Like, I believe that where it's headed, or, you know, it has to be a joint effort between men and women, right? I think there's some element of women needing to own their power, of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, asking for the salaries that they need, because a lot of times people don't get paid because they're not asking for what they're worth, what they deserve, versus, you know, just absolute, you know, bias. Writing self-performance, you know, evaluations that are not shy about their contributions. There are times and places to be super humble and, you know, kind of behind the scenes. And then there's a time and place to like show them who you are and that you're contributing in a valuable way. I think on the gender equity part of that, I think we too often we talk about this in a binary kind of way with men and women, but also like if you just dig in the surface with women in general, looking at equity across racial lines as well, right? Because there's the 80, you know, everybody knows the 80 cents on a dollar average, you know, or 80 cents per every dollar a man makes, but Black women, 54 cents, Latino women, even lower. So there's ways so until we start having those conversations out in the open, and I don't think we're really having them out in the open, if we're being honest, you know, the way that we need to. I think we're gonna see a little bit of progress, like baby steps, but not the way that it needs to actually change the system, that where everybody is included and can participate and can have an expectation of equal opportunity to equal outcomes.
And I think to this point is that it's not only about equal opportunities, it's also about acknowledging the differences between men and women, and also realizing that there's a place for that. Like there should not be, like, kind of how women sometimes might feel like, well, I have to be one of the guys, right? Like, oh, you know, just one of the guys. It's like, why do we have to be one of the guys? Like, can't we come to the table with our own femininity and our own insights and bringing the differences that are needed to the workplace as a woman? And so having that kind of, not saying, well, you know, like equality, like everything should be equal and we should all think the same. No, like bring the diversity, bring the women, the men, the people of color, like everything to the table, and saying that we can be feminine, we can bring these different aspects to the table and still achieve equity and achieve that recognition and respect.
Absolutely.
A big difference too is like, I don't compete on the dollar thing. If someone says, I need you to do this, how much do you charge? I say to them, well, I'm not selling you dollars, I'm selling you an outcome. And because especially around data, I mean, if you're proficient, you can turn something over in half an hour. That shouldn't be priced, as half of your hourly rate. So I always ask them for a budget, because I'm like, for whatever your budget is, I can give you what you need. It just may be, a smaller sample size. It may be a different, less complicated, fewer graphics. I don't allow the discussion anymore to be about hourly rate, even though I have one. I don't want it to be about, like I'm selling you currency. I want there to be value around what that project is and what that outcome is. And then it sort of takes, and I know, like I sometimes I'm a little cheaper, sometimes I'm a little more. If it's a rush to the bottom, I'm not your person to work with, because I'm not going to go there. There's enough people in the averages that will do your job for no money, that let them have it. I don't want it. That's why I like what Kendra was saying about, you pick the clients as much as they pick you. Mm-hmm. And having those discussions can also give a certain level of equity in your working life.
For sure. Kendra's back.
Sorry.
That's okay. No worries. So let's get into a little bit of the advice piece, because, again, I think talking about action items is really important. So what advice do you guys have for both men and women on how we can speed up our progress towards these goals in equality and diversity and inclusion?
I was looking at my notes and I wrote one thing. I wrote, don't be an a-hole.
Exactly.
That really summarizes it perfectly, right?
Well, I mean, when I was thinking about this question, I kind of thought about it on like 3 different levels. So I would say my advice to women, especially those that are getting started in their career, is that hard work alone is not enough. Great performance is good for job security, but from an advancement perspective, and to get noticed and promoted, you need to strategically pick the right work. And understand that you need to make sure that it has organizational impact and outcomes. Just being a behind the scenes player, being good at what you do is not enough. You need to strategically make relationships and networks that will elevate you to the next level. The thing I would have for men is actually 2-pronged. One is, I would say that amplify, and maybe this is for both men and women, is amplify female voices in meetings or in different settings, right? So if a woman, I forgot who mentioned it, but if a woman suggests an idea and the entire room doesn't acknowledge it, and then a man repeats it, and all of a sudden it gets the vibes that it really should have gotten in the first place, have someone repeat it and give their female colleague credit for that idea. Maybe like something like, as Serena said, yada, yada, yada. Basically hammer each other's points, good points, because if it's a dumb idea, just, don't amplify that just for the sake of, but, in the meetings. And then the other thing for men specifically is, I would say, challenge the likability penalties that we kind of give women. Where we say that if, like, I think Lindsay was talking about this earlier, if a woman raises her voice, it's seen as she's, the B word, and she's difficult to work with, all those kind of things. And so if you are in a situation, because they won't ever have this in a room, out in public, well, so-and-so is a B, or so-and-so is bossy or difficult to work with. But if you're in a one-on-one conversation with other men, really ask the question, can you give me a specific example where, I'm using Lindsay as an example, where Lindsay said or did something that was bossy or bitchy or emotional or whatever the term is, right? And then ask them if, their reaction would be different if Lindsay was Larry. Really kind of challenge them directly, because until we start doing that in the comfort of our like circles, none of this will change, right? You'll get fantastic public attitudes, but the real magic happens behind the scenes. and challenging some of the stuff that we deal with.
Absolutely.
And I'd like to talk a little bit on this as well, which is what I've brought up before, but mentorship is so important. And I can really just speak from the perspective of a young woman entering the workforce, is that I've been lucky enough to have women mentors that I've reached out to, or they have taken me under their wing, but also men. It's so important to give that, to go out to lunch with your with the young women, the interns or the young employees, like take them out to lunch, take them to give advice, make sure that you're also supporting them, because if you have whether you're a woman or a man, if you're in a position of power or leadership, it's so important to give back and to, make that vertical, to make that space and really lend yourself to help the young women coming into the workforce, to give them that space and that presence.
Absolutely. I think the conversations that I've had with men on this subject is that they want to know. They want me to give them like a little laminated reference book that they can keep in their pocket, so they can be better allies, right? And the truth is that doesn't really exist, because everything is so unique to each situation's own context. And the best advice that I can give them is just to try to be empathetic, like use those empathetic muscles, exercise them, and they will get better at trying to understand the feelings and what other people in that room who have different backgrounds than them might be experiencing a similar situation. Like for example, just yesterday I went out to lunch with a guy, and as we were walking back to the parking ramp, there was a woman who was also heading to that same door, and he hurried a little bit and to go open the door for her, which we've all been raised in the environment in a society where that's what gentlemen should do, right? And it's a great example of benevolent sexism, because the question is, would he have done that if that were a guy heading towards that door? And if not, then that is the perpetuation that women are these fragile things that need that extra help from guys in particular. So that's just just a super quick example of if you start thinking about how you interact with the world, in that extra level of awareness about, am I treating this person that way because they are a woman? And is this, how is that going to impact them, right? Should I say something about, that person's sweater being cute, or liking her shoes, or, is that making a stronger connection between that woman's value and her appearance? Now, how am I contributing to these constructs that generally have negative outcomes for women? So, in lieu of a laminated cheat sheet, that's what I have.
How about a shock collar?
I guess my question is, maybe it's a question for the group, because you kind of brought up holding doors open. I guess where's the line? Where's the what if they should they just start holding doors open for men? Because I live in the South. I live in Georgia. And so, there's just certain norms here where people will hold the door open for each other. And it's not an exhibition of, or it's not like a manifestation of sexism here.
But is it if you only do it for women? Because I hold the door for everybody. You're coming behind.
How do you know? How do you know who they're holding the door for next? I like a door open.
Exactly. And so that's what I'm like, for me, it's what do we, what are the things that we're going to that's going to drive the biggest problem? Is it the little stuff like that? Or is it I don't know, because I just don't want to make men paranoid either. Yeah. Right? Because there's the extreme effect where, people are oh, well, I can't do anything, and I shouldn't even talk to so-and-so. And it's I don't know where that balance is. And so I just kind of think about, like, I want to empathize with the men a little bit and say, okay, so like, what are the, you know, the thing, you know, like, I don't know, like, you know, is it acknowledging their own privilege? Is it, you know, you know, it's hard to answer this question.
Yeah.
You know, specifically, because I actually like my door being held open.
I think that's great. I mean, you know, who doesn't? I think, you know, the point is that if you bring it down to that level of granularity, right, into that extreme, that maybe they'll start thinking about other instances that might be more impactful, right? Like, I'll give another one in our couple minutes that we have left. So, you know, if there's a team that's working on a project with a tight deadline, and maybe there's 1 or 2 women on that team, and in order to get this done, somebody's going to have to stay late, or a group of people are going to have to stay late to get this done. And the guys are thinking, oh, well, that, you know, she's a mom or whatever, or has other priorities, and I'm going to volunteer to stay late and do this work so she can go and do her thing, which is, right, most people are thinking, like, I'm being nice, I'm being a gentleman. But they didn't know that gal, she's like ready to lean in and crush it. And she wants to do that work. She wants to be part of it. She wants to be recognized for that. And now there's potentially an awkward situation to.
I think ultimately, like, you know, just to counter a little bit, it's up to women as well to raise their voices, to speak up.
Absolutely.
You know, they're
So
not
true.
these little, you know, innocent little lambs that just, you know, life happens to.
So true.
You know, and so if this lady wants to crush it and do all this other stuff, she can volunteer. She has an opportunity, just like those men did, to you know, to stay late.
Yep.
You know, I think accommodating special circumstances, whether you're a mother or something else like that, I mean, I think that's just some, you know, sometimes it could be a level of courtesy, but I mean, I think it's just like a case by case basis. But I think we also need to say that women have an account. They have to be accountable for their own actions or inactions in this conversation about gender equality and equity.
Absolutely.
Because we have a lot of power, and I think a part of some of the reasons why we're behind is because we don't use that power. We don't acknowledge it.
Yep.
So
absolutely, it's such a complex and nuanced subject, and I love talking about it because it's, you know, you can see both sides, right? You can absolutely see both sides of that, and both sides have responsibility and opportunities to make it better for everyone. So,
and to that point, you know, that's why I really struggled with a lot of the questions, because I had to go all the way back to my, you know, post-grad years, because I don't allow myself to stand in that space, you know, as a working woman.
Yes.
I do try to mentor other women, but sometimes it's not about mentoring. It's about saying, maybe you shouldn't speak like a Kardashian. Maybe you shouldn't end all your sentences up on the lilt. Maybe you shouldn't, you know, and I have one of my son's very beautiful girlfriend, you know, she's about gender equality, and, you know, she should be able to dress any way and not be discriminated against. And she met a friend of mine who looked at her and was listening to her research, which is very technical around gender in the corporate environment. So very timely. And she's looking at her, and you know, we're at the beach, so she's dressed in a little, you know, bathing suit kind of scenario. And she looks at her and she goes, you know, for a smart cookie, you sure got a lot of cookie. And I just thought that was so funny, because how we present ourselves in these interactions is also on us. So I really appreciate Chandra for bringing that out, because I thought maybe I was radicalized because I've been at this for so long. But it's nice to hear younger voices stepping into that space to empower themselves, because there's a lot of power there, and there's a lot of room to bring other women on board.
Yep,
not that we approve of slut shaming. I don't think that's where this was headed. But, you know, I think there's just a dressing appropriate for the environment. That goes for men and women, you know, just in general.
It wasn't how she was dressed. I just really liked what she said. My friend said, so I needed context around it, but she was saying, you know, you're a smart cookie, and there's a lot of cookie there too, which I thought was a really cute way of saying, you know, you're very smart, and you're also, you know, have all this femininity about you as well, is how I took it.
So I think the moral of the story here is that all women are different, All men are different. And I think at the end of the day, where those two things clash is that historically speaking, we all live in a world that was designed by and for white men, and there's just inherent benefits that come with that. So when you have everyone in a position of power and influence, that can enact these acts of discrimination around sex, whether they have bad intentions or not, there is a power imbalance that we find ourselves on the short end more often than not. But super, like, the conversation has been great, you guys. I love it. It is super complex. There's no easy answer, which is why we're looking at another 208 years before we reach the kind of equality that we're looking for.
Don't say that.
What's that? Don't say that.
Don't say that. It's that.
Well, that's why we're here kind of to speed that shit up, right? So, all right. I think we are over on our time, but I appreciate all of you so much. It's been fabulous. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for this conversation.